Most men are accustomed to women who are still waiting to be chosen. Women who shape their words, their desires, and even their silences to make themselves desirable. Women who still believe, consciously or unconsciously, that love must be earned with effort, that validation comes from outside, and that the male gaze is the mirror that defines one's worth. But the healed woman, no, she has already chosen herself, and that changes everything. She crossed the desert of rejection, the broken mirror of childhood, the relationships where she was only half. She looked at her wounds and, instead of hiding them, decided to understand them. She sat before the pain as if before a teacher. She cried without an audience, rose without applause. The healed woman was not born ready. She bled, she lost herself, she collapsed, but she rebuilt herself with awareness, with presence, with self-love. And now, she doesn't need a man to validate her. She needs a man who will be there for her, without trying to put her down. This woman is in no rush. She isn't collecting promises or fantasies. She observes gestures, what's between the lines, what's revealed in silence. She doesn't chase, doesn't dramatize, doesn't try to prove her worth, because she already knows her own worth. She's already chosen herself. She already recognizes herself as whole, and this, for many men, is disconcerting, because this woman will not be manipulated by guilt, nor seduced by crumbs. She will not be tamed by games, nor enchanted by appearances. She sees beyond, because in choosing herself, she connected with a profound vision, one that separates the genuine from the disguise, the present from the absent, the man from the boy. She's no longer trying to fit into anyone's mold. She's shattered the mold. And now she walks like someone who knows exactly who she is, not with arrogance, but with a peace that frightens those who still thrive on external validation. She's already chosen herself. And if a man wants to walk beside her, he'll have to have done the same for you. She's played this game before. She's been the one who waited for messages that never came, the one who mistook crumbs for emotional feasts, the one who tolerated lukewarmness for fear of losing the little she received. She's known the feeling of begging for reciprocity through silence. She's danced the dance of insecurity thinking it was love. But now, she's awake, and she no longer enters that arena. The healed woman does not play the neediness game because she knows that neediness is not love. It is the absence of self. She spent too much time trying to fill holes left by past absences, perhaps from an emotionally unavailable father, perhaps from a society that taught her that femininity only has value when it pleases, when it serves, when it waits. But today, she no longer bows to that emptiness. She recognizes when someone approaches her not out of genuine connection, but out of dependence disguised as romance. And in those cases, she backs away, silently, firmly. She doesn't respond to emotional manipulation. She doesn't thrive on emotional hide-and-seek games. She wants presence, clarity, intention, not because she's too demanding, but because she's finally learned to give herself what she's always expected of others. Many men mistake this for coldness. They think she doesn't need anyone, but that's not the case. She simply won't lose herself to be loved. She won't shrink. She won't pretend. She won't tolerate what hurts her soul in the name of companionship that only feeds the fear of loneliness. She doesn't play the neediness game because she played the conscience game, and she won. She loves deeply, but she doesn't love out of lack. She loves to overflow, and she only gives herself to those who know how to love without trying to possess her. To those who understand that love isn't about holding on, it's about being whole enough to walk together without using the other as an emotional crutch. And this, for many men, is still incomprehensible. It's easy for the male ego to interpret a healed woman's silence as disinterest, her calm as indifference, her firmness as rigidity. But the truth is, she's not being cold. She's just no longer willing to feed the emotional theater where pain becomes bonding and conflict becomes attention. She's grown. She's healed. And along with that, she's learned that peace is worth more than any adrenaline disguised as passion. The healed woman does not seek intensity. She seeks wholeness. She won't raise her voice just to be heard. She won't test her limits to prove her love. She won't engage in jealousy, blackmail, or veiled competition to feel desired. This all belongs to an old version of her, a wounded version that mistook chaos for true love. Now she knows, where there is emotional maturity, there's no need for spectacle. And that's why she's dangerous for men who still confuse drama with connection. Because these men will try to provoke her into the old dance, disappearing to see if she runs, prodding to see if she explodes, omitting to see if she reacts. But she doesn't play anymore. She doesn't chase. She doesn't explain herself where there's no one listening. She doesn't justify herself to those who don't seek real understanding. She simply walks away. No scandal, no scene, no revenge. It's this silence that most confuses those accustomed to explosive reactions. Because it's not empty. It's filled with awareness. It's the response of someone who no longer needs to exhaust themselves emotionally to validate their presence in someone's life. The absence of drama doesn't mean an absence of feeling. It means she chose to take care of her own energy before trying to save relationships where only she bleeds. It means she knows that true love is calm, constant, and nourishing, not a soul-shattering roller coaster. She has emotions, and many. But she doesn't outsource them. She observes them, welcomes them, processes them. And she only shares them with those who have the emotional structure to sustain them maturely, not with those who transform them into ammunition on an unconscious battlefield. The absence of drama is not coldness. It is healing, and that's disarming, because it reveals that love can be calm, but only when the ego stops screaming. The healed woman has eyes that see beyond gestures. She sees intentions disguised as praise, absences masked by excuses, and promises that already know the path to frustration, not because she's become cynical or paranoid, but because she's learned to recognize the unconscious script that once kept her trapped in hurtful cycles, and called it destiny. She studied her own patterns. She cried over them. She confronted the shadow. And now she knows. Not everything the soul desires is what the heart needs. Unlike the wounded woman, who romanticizes repetition and calls the old a coincidence of the universe, the healed woman understands that many relationships are merely invitations from the unconscious for her to look at herself. And by looking at herself, she finally learned to differentiate what attracts out of neediness from what connects out of truth. That's why she pulls away quickly, sometimes even before the first kiss, because she feels, she perceives, she intuits, and her entire body recognizes when that kind of presence was once the setting for a version of her that no longer exists. She's not afraid of loneliness. She's afraid of betraying herself. Many men wonder why she suddenly disappears, why she retreats when everything seemed to be going well. The answer is simple, yet profound. She saw something, a behavior, a phrase, a pattern. And in that small detail she recognized an old prison, one where she had once been, where she had already nullified herself, where she had ceased to be so as not to lose someone. But today, she chooses not to lose herself. She's been to therapy. You've read books. He's written letters he never sent. You've forgiven those who never apologized, and you've forgiven yourself for staying when you should have left. Now, every step she takes is conscious. Every yes comes from her whole body, and every no is a prayer of respect for her own story. She recognizes patterns and doesn't repeat them, because she understands that true love doesn't hurt her, doesn't silence her, doesn't confuse her, and that anything that requires her self-denial isn't connection. It's a Repetition of trauma. She broke the cycle, and that makes her dangerous to any man who still repeats his own. When a man approaches a healed woman hoping she will fill his voids, he finds a mirror, not a crutch. Because this woman no longer lives to save anyone, nor to be saved. She doesn't confuse presence with possession, nor bond with imprisonment. She loves, but her love doesn't suffocate. It liberates. She learned with pain and lucidity that true love is not born from lack, but from the abundance of being. She doesn't need a partner to feel her life has meaning. Her life already has purpose. She's already built her inner home, already knows her rituals, her passions, her silence. And that's precisely why, if she chooses you, it's because she wants to, not because she needs to. There's no dependence on your affection. There's conscious surrender, without fear of loss, because she's already found herself. This woman won't mold herself to fit your world. She'll invite you to expand yours. She won't stop you from growing, nor will she try to control you. She'll observe you, tease you, nurture you, but she won't hold you back. Because she knows, either love is a daily choice between two free souls, or it's a prison disguised as romance. Many men still think that love means being everything to someone, but she no longer believes that. She doesn't want a savior, nor does she want to be anyone's reason for existence. She wants to walk alongside someone whole, someone who has also made the inner journey, someone who understands that freedom isn't the absence of the other, it's a presence within oneself. She doesn't demand emotional exclusivity. She inspires authenticity. And if she realizes she's being used as an escape valve, a distraction for a man who doesn't want to face himself, she withdraws. Not out of disaffection, but out of respect for her own peace. Her love is fire, but it doesn't burn. It's presence, but it doesn't watch. It's surrender, but it doesn't beg. Because she knows, true love doesn't need to cling. It flows. And it is precisely this freedom that frightens so many men, still trapped in the idea that love is about possessing, watching, and shaping. With her, this doesn't work, because she wasn't born to live in gilded cages. She is wind, she is root, she is body and spirit in balance, and she only remains where the freedom of both is honored as sacred. In the past, she reacted. She screamed, explained herself, begged for understanding. She thought she needed to be heard to be loved, that she needed to stand up for herself to be respected. But now, after having gone through the dark night of the soul, she has discovered that true strength lies not in reaction. It lies in the silent observation that precedes a conscious choice. The healed woman does not act on impulse. She acts out of clarity. When something hurts her, she doesn't explode. She listens to what that pain wants to show her. She doesn't project her insecurities onto others, nor does she turn frustrations into attacks. She breathes, she observes, and in that space between stimulus and response, she finds herself. Because she understands that reacting is repeating old patterns, but deciding is breaking them. Many men are disconcerted by this attitude. They expect scenes, confrontations, emotional storms. They're accustomed to relationships where noise is proof of love, where shouting is a sign of affection. But she doesn't buy into that. She's learned that what arises from a lack of control dies in guilt, and that sometimes silence is the loudest cry of a self-respecting soul. She feels everything, but she doesn't surrender her soul to any provocation, because it's no longer about the other person. It's about her, about what she wants to build, about the energy she wants to cultivate around her, about not wasting her light trying to illuminate those who insist on remaining in the shadows. She doesn't react, because she doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. If someone disrespects her, she doesn't beg for change, she moves on. If someone doesn't know how to listen to her, she stops shouting, she withdraws. If she senses manipulation, she stops playing, she ends the game. And she does so with a disarming serenity, because it comes from someone who has already understood that peace of mind is worth more than any illusory victory in an emotional battle. She learned that those who react are slaves to others, but those who decide are their own masters. And that's why the healed woman is frightening, because she doesn't enter the frequency of chaos. She chooses the path of presence, and on this path only those who also know how to sustain their own silence, their own discomfort, their own truth fit. The healed woman has seen many men enter the scene with firm posture, rehearsed words, and intense gazes. She has been courted by men who knew exactly what to say, how to move, how to create an impact. But today, she no longer allows herself to be swayed by the superficial shine of male presence, because she has learned that presence without emotional awareness is merely performance. And performance, however seductive, does not build depth. She'd been enchanted by firm voices that trembled inside, by athletic bodies that carried fragile souls, by smiles that hid inner walls and egos that couldn't bear to be truly seen. And she grew tired of being a spectator to men who only know how to appear, but don't know how to stay. Now, she's looking for something else. She wants truth in the look, authenticity in the touch, transparency in the speech. She wants someone who knows how to get in touch with their own emotions before trying to access hers. Someone who doesn't shy away from vulnerability, who has the courage to say, "I don't know, I'm scared, I need time, I'm here." Because that, yes, impresses her. That, yes, touches her. She recognizes from afar the man who lives only in the external, who has built a strong image but never delved into his own shadow. And no matter how handsome, confident, or alpha he appears, if he lacks emotional depth, he will knock on her door and will be met with silence. Because she knows that a man can be physically present and emotionally absent, and she no longer tolerates absences disguised as presence. She wants to be touched by awareness, not by acting. And for that, a man needs to have done the inner work. He needs to have sat with himself, faced his emptiness, healed his wounds, or at least be willing to do so. It's not enough to just be there. You have to feel, listen, and support. The healed woman is not dazzled by presence. She opens herself to the truth, and she only surrenders herself to those who have the inner strength to encounter her as an equal, without needing to dominate her or hide from her, because she is presence, and she only recognizes as a partner those who know they are also. Before, the silence was frightening. The lack of messages, the empty bed, the Sundays without plans felt like punishments. She interpreted loneliness as a flaw, as a sign that something about her was unlovable. But over time, something changed. The wounded woman who feared her own emptiness transformed into a healed woman who reveres it. Today, solitude is no longer a punishment. It's a temple. It's in this space where she hears her own voice without noise. She feels her heartbeat without needing to adjust its rhythm to anyone else's. She dances alone, sleeps hugging herself, cooks with pleasure, reads as if each page were a mirror. She has made peace with being alone. And now she no longer accepts company that brings less peace than the one she found within herself. She's not always available. She doesn't respond impulsively. She doesn't accept invitations for fear of being alone. Because her solitude isn't an empty space. It's a full space, inhabited by everything that's true within her. And to enter this space, the other must come clean. They must come whole. Many men don't understand this. They feel rejected when she chooses to spend a weekend with herself. They think she's too complicated, that no one will handle her. But what they don't realize is that she doesn't want to be handled. She wants to be understood, honored, found, not invaded. She honors her solitude because it was there that she rebuilt herself. It was there that she cried without anyone to wipe her tears. that she discovered. Her truths, her limits, her mission. That silence, which once hurt, became the cradle of her new identity. And now, any presence that wishes to enter must be silent too, must listen, must respect. The healed woman isn't afraid of being alone. She's afraid of losing her connection to the sacred she discovered in solitude. And so she doesn't give in to any noise that tries to fill that space, because she's already fulfilled. And whoever wants to be with her must be willing to share, not steal. Her solitude is sacred, and she will never trade it for company that leaves her feeling emptier than when she is alone. She doesn't need to say much. Her presence is enough. A look, a measured response, a firm choice, and something inside the other begins to stir. Because the healed woman, unlike the wounded woman seeking acceptance, doesn't edit her light to be less uncomfortable. And by shining fully, she activates what many have spent their lives avoiding, their own shadow. She doesn't do it out of malice. She doesn't try to teach, correct, or change anyone. But her simple existence is confronting, because she lives with truth. And the truth, for those who still live with masks, is unbearable. Many men, upon encountering this woman, feel simultaneously attracted and unsettled. They desire her depth, but fear what they'll have to give up to achieve it. They feel seen, and this, for someone who has always lived in the emotional shadows, is almost violent. She is a mirror. And mirrors don't judge, they just reveal. That's why, by her side, a man will see where he still bleeds. You'll see the patterns he repeats, the wounds he hides, the walls he's built. She doesn't need to point. She just needs to be there. Just be. Her authenticity resonates like a bell in the other's unconscious, calling him to awaken, to dive in, to face himself. And that can be scary, because many say they want a woman with depth, but few are ready to be seen without disguises. It awakens truths, because you allow yourself to feel, touch, and name what is hidden. And you invite, with your own wholeness, the other person to do the same. But you don't force them. It knows the process is individual. And so, if it senses the other person isn't ready, it steps back. Not out of disdain, but out of respect for the other person's time, and its own. Being with a healed woman is like opening a continuous mirror. There's no longer room for performance or emotional convenience. She will see you, and she will invite you, simply by being who you are, to see yourself too. And this invitation is not for everyone, because while many seek comfort, she offers transformation. While many seek love that numbs, she brings love that awakens. Love that tears, cleanses, and restructures. Love that confronts, but that heals. She is a mirror, and whoever approaches her must be willing to see themselves. She's tried, she's bent, she's molded, she's torn herself in half, trying to be half for Guy, someone who came empty. She's believed that love could heal everything, including the other person's lack of commitment. She's given more than she had. She's confused intensity with surrender. But now, she's learned. He learned that love doesn't save anyone, and that unilateral effort doesn't build bridges. It builds exhaustion. A healed woman no longer carries anyone in her emotional embrace. She won't complete a man who doesn't yet know who he is. She won't interpret ambiguous signals, nor decipher silences that hide immaturity. She already understands. If the other person doesn't come whole, if they don't take responsibility for their own shadows, pain, and processes, she won't stay. Not out of arrogance, but out of self-love. She knows she's not a therapist. She's not a mother. She's not an emotional band-aid for a man who refuses to grow up, and that if she accepts someone broken without the will to rebuild, she'll bleed again. So now she pays attention to the details. The consistency, the genuine presence, the willingness to evolve together. And if she sees that the other person is waiting to be healed, validated, or rescued, she doesn't engage. because she's already tried, and all she's received in return is exhaustion, frustration, and the burden of carrying a relationship alone. She knows only two whole halves can form a true bond. She no longer wants relationships where she needs to prove herself worthy. She already knows she is. And so, she only stays where there is emotional reciprocity, maturity, and emotional responsibility. If the other man is still looking for a woman who completes him, who makes him feel like a man, she gently walks away, because she's no longer in that game. She doesn't want a perfect man, but she wants a man committed to his own wholeness, and if he doesn't come that way, she doesn't try to fix him. She moves on, lightly, firmly, peacefully, because the healed woman no longer carries the world on her shoulders. She carries herself, and that's enough.